the SEMA, the convention center where SEMA's at, there's the Tesla loop. So remember the Tesla loop, because it puts you up into each different area, right?
Okay.
You don't have to walk 4 miles. You can just takes you underground, which is a cool experience all on its own, right?
Right.
Goes up the underground tunnels and pops. I don't know if you heard about that at all, but that's a pretty cool. It's just cool to do it, but it's also extremely helpful when you need to go from like one side to another at the convention center. We won't talk anything bad anymore.
No, we can talk about our own little road rages. Is that mine's nothing? Mine's not as exciting. I've never had to, get out of the car yet, but I have had more than once to like wave the guy down, and then he just keeps going because
Oh, you've never had to get out before? I guess it's the California thing, huh?
Yeah, I think so. And then it's like Brian Pollock, his stories are the best because it's like, we've all seen the internet videos, and it's like Brian would get out of a car and that person's going to run back to their car because somebody 6'8" and almost 400 pounds that can handle themselves just got out of the car, right? It's like, okay, if I don't get this car and drive, he's going to flip it over on me, and then I can't get away. So I better get away fast. But
I don't. I'm pretty quick. I'm not scared of the big guys. The bigger they are, the harder they falls. But
yeah,
I had one in my youth where this guy was. It was a similar thing I was just talking about, and so I pull over and he pulls up right behind me, and I'm like, fucking game on, right? And I'm like, I'm at the rear of my bumper before the guy's even out of his car, right on the side of the road. And this dude gets out and he's just shy of 6 feet, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, this is a while ago, so I was maybe 140 pounds, like, right? But he comes walking up, and I'm just like in his face. I'm like, let's roll, dude. And he's like, the look on his face was like so shocked because I'm like looking up to him, and I'm like, dude, it's game on, right? And he's like, and so he stops for a second. He's like, hey, look, I know what's going on, but I can see, like, you need to come down to my doja. And I'm like, what? And so he owns they call it the Pit. I don't know if you know who
John
Chuck Liddell. Huh?
So did you meet John Hackelman, or did you meet Chuck Liddell?
No. It was the owner of the Pit at the time.
John Hackelman.
Yeah, I think that was his name. Yeah, and so it was him, right? And he's like, I'm the owner of the Pit, man. You need to come down, and I can like, we need to get you in some pads. And he's like, he starts selling me and shit. It's the weirdest fucking thing that happened. But then, like, hindsight being, I'm like, oh, that could have been really bad for me. I think probably.
Oh, Jimmy. We wouldn't be talking right now if that.
But it's like it didn't matter to me at the time, right? I'm like, I don't care what's about to go down, right?
Yeah,
but it was a pretty funny story.
He's a serious dude for sure.
Yeah,
I ran in that circle for MMA forever, right? My brother did it professionally. He had 9 fights. Was trained with George St. Pierre multiple times. Like, I've been around that.
But that's the only dude in like all the different, incidents like that actually pulled over and got out. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just goes to show, like, if they actually pull over and they're willing to get out, like, it's not going to be good for one of you. Like, right. Cause like all the other times, and I still, like, dude, I'm not going to play games with you on the road. Like, we're pulling over and we're going to talk this out. Right. And they never do, right? They just keep driving along, and like, they don't want anything to do with that. And I mean, hindsight being, that's just a stupid, idiotic youth thing to do anyway. Like, like, over what? Like, what are we even doing here, right? But that one was funny because I remember when I got back in the car, I was there with a bunch of my buddies, and we were heading down to the beach, and they're like, what happened? I'm like, I guess the dude owns the Pit. And they're like, oh my fucking God, like, with Chuck Liddell. Like, is that the place? Because I don't know. This is like 15 years ago, right? I wasn't like really into that shit, so I was like, it was pretty funny.
The heyday of it, the heyday of the Pit.
Yeah.
Well, so you and I are going to Vegas, and of course, my brother, when he hears that I'm going there, right, he wants to talk about, like, oh, you need to go to this dojo over there, and like, do you think he can go to the UFC training center? And like, dude, I don't know what I'm gonna have time to do in Vegas, right? But like,
well, we gotta unpack this thing, because we got, oh man. So for those looking at going, there's shuttles, right? So avoid walking, like, at all costs. because there's shuttles from all the hotels. Like Treasure Island's a good one to stay at because it's pretty inexpensive and it's right across
Right.
the street from the Venetian. And once you
Okay.
get into the Venetian, you can take the shuttle bus from Venetian to the convention center because that's
Hmm.
where SEMA is. So I don't know if you're familiar with
Not at all.
Vegas, not even a little bit.
I know, what is it, like Fremont Street is the street to go to see things at night, I guess is how they say.
No, you'll definitely see things. Oh my god, Fremont Street. No, that's cool. Fremont's cool, but
Yeah.
yeah, go with a friend.
We're staying in a BRB Airbnb off of
Okay.
the strip.
Oh,
It's going to be like Lucas and David. I think David's staying with us, which truthfully, that's the highlight of my trip. If I get to cohabitate with David for a couple days, you may never see him again.
why would you want to do that?
just to just to stir the pot with him,
Oh my
just to
god.
mess with him, right?
Well, yeah,
Like,
I guess.
oh, you left beer, your beard hairs in the sink. Well, whose beard hair is it really? Come on now, like just sit like that. I could see, him in his way. Um, you've been, how many times have you been to SEMA now?
This is the 4th year in a row.
Fourth year. Yeah.
So
And I've been
getting
wanting to go since I was 14. So,
yeah, 4th year. Yeah, because we went in 2020 and it was an absolute nightmare, but it was also one of the best shows that I've been to.
mhm.
Oddly enough, because they didn't have like the staffing for the shuttles and they didn't have the staffing for like anything. So being the first time there trying to like navigate and ask somebody like how do I get here, where's this, and then of course I just line my docket up with classes. I'm like every ownership management class that I could possibly think of. I mean, I had shit signed up, and this won't probably make sense to you right now, but when you get there you're gonna remember this. You're like, what the hell is that guy thinking? I had like morning classes set at Apex and then afternoon classes set at SEMA.
Okay.
And so I was like, I don't know how I thought I was gonna make that happen with everything
Yeah.
else going on, but I didn't. And I'm like stressed because I'm like paid for these classes and I'm like running
Mhm.
late. I'm like running around. We walked from Apex to SEMA multiple times because we just couldn't figure out the shuttle system. And it's like, it was just an absolute nightmare. But you'd walk around SEMA and everyone's just giving you hats and t-shirts. And like,
Yeah.
I still have swag here from 2020. Like, because it was some of the coolest shit they had, like USB like dongles and like just all
Yeah.
kinds of rad shit. I'm like, this place is fucking. And every year since then, like their stuff's like now you get a pen or like a sticker. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh wow, what happened to all the cool shit? Like I had coffee mugs and like coasters and like you just walk around the booth and there's so much cool shit that you can grab. Now
Yeah.
it's like one out of every like 100 booth has something cool. I'm like, oh man.
I'm interested in seeing the Harbor Freight layout. I saw lots of guys that last year when they were there walking around that exhibit. And I say, like, to call it an exhibit, it's almost like it was massive, right? That's the
Oh
thing
yeah,
that
yeah.
I want to see that up close and talk to some of the people. And then another one I'd really like to meet is the guy Ian he's now with Big Tire Garage, but Ian has been known on Extreme 4x4, and he was the guy behind the scenes for Stacy David that did a lot of the builds in the shop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know Ian's Canadian, but Ian's like right around my area. He grew up there.
Wow.
And so it's like, if there's one cat I could meet at SEMA, it'd be him. Now, he's not super popular not popular, it's not super active on social media. So my whole goal is, before I get there, is to figure out if he's going to be there, and if I can bump into him and just say hello. That'd be pretty cool. Or
The amount of people you bump into there is just it's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I want to talk to Dave from Dave's Auto. If Dave's Auto will talk to me, and
So I got a friend of mine, Kyle Hogue. He's actually is in cahoots with Dave. So
okay,
I'm
cool.
actually talking to him, and he's going to try to work something out for us. We'll see if we can track Dave down.
Yeah,
That'd be kind of rad. And the one thing too, so the Apex and SEMA both have an app. So I definitely recommend downloading that app because it'll show you all the appearances of like in quote celebrities, right? Like
yeah.
Constance Nunes. Like
Yes,
she's
know her.
always super nice to run into, right? Like
Yeah,
she is though. Every year I like try to find where she's at because she's always like smiling and
yeah,
comes up, give you a hug, take a picture with you, and she's just like and you can stand there in line and watch her like every single person. She's just like truly, honestly, like nice to like. Oh, you're just like a nice person. Like that's pretty
yeah.
cool, right?
I'd
And
like
then
to meet
same,
Courtney Hanson. I mean, I've
yeah,
been
yeah,
following her forever, right? Like way back, first female on overhauling, right? The first
right.
whatever you want to call her, like spokesperson or whatever, like that I
Well, now they're
remember.
doing that. You've seen that new show she's doing where they got a group of people and they go to if you're like building a garage project, right? And it's been
Okay.
sitting in your garage for 10 years, they'll go to your house and they actually finish the restoration in your garage. They show up with
Wow.
a van and a group of guys and they actually finish the build like in your garage. I can't remember the name of the damn show, but yeah, she's got this new show going on. It's pretty
Right
cool.
on.
Yeah.
Remember when the guys from Get You Some, Richard Rawlings, Gas Monkey, remember when they
Oh
had that
yeah.
offshoot show and they were going around to the shops? Remember that? And they were like helping
Oh, the
them.
garage rehab with
I,
Chris. Oh, what was Chris? What was his name? I know what you're talking about. It was Richard and some other guy.
big burly guy with a beard,
Yeah.
like, and then I wish that show had never gone off the air because that was the one that I could really relate to, right? And then it would have been like I kept thinking, I'd really like to know the dynamic that's going on behind here, like what
Yeah.
really is going on, right?
It was
Because
a
you
little
and
bit
I in this industry, it's probably shops that some of us have driven by, and
possibly, yeah.
maybe there's a backstory to why it got to where it is, or some of them it's hoarding, right? You see the stuff that they got piled up in there. It's
Oh
like
my god, yeah.
you can never make money in here.
I don't know. A little bit was kind of a dumpster fire as far as like I don't know. There was a lot of good advice and some of it was like not so good, and so it was pretty tough because they were trying to do like this generic
Yeah,
overarching like this is how you do in every shop and like just replicate, and you
yeah,
just can't do that. Like
no.
you really have to like fine tune a little bit, but
Mhm.
I don't know. And speaking of that stuff, I mean, like Apex, I know SEMA's like the big spot, but the training at Apex is like next level. Like
Yeah,
the people that talk there, I know David Roman was doing a class there. I don't Is he doing it this year again too?
I'm
He's
not
got
sure.
his hiring class. And I know like, we give him a hard time a lot, but is the dude's
Oh,
smart. Like he knows his shit. Like his
brilliant.
hiring class was like that shit works. Like if you
Yeah,
actually do exactly what he tells you to do, like it's an awesome onboarding. Like if you're interviewing people and you're like, man, every time I get this guy or I hire somebody and something goes sideways, it's like, why does this keep happening? If you follow his procedure, like that shit doesn't happen. Like he weeds
yeah,
out people, right? Unless you're just looking for a warm body, then like hire whoever the fuck you want.
yeah. Oh, he's an incredible dude. I mean, I haven't really honestly looked at the courses that are offered at either place. You heard me say it when we were talking. This is kind of going to be for me just like a not a vacation, but a lifetimes of work of one day on the bucket list getting to a show. This is that for me.
So what are you looking for when you go there? Like what's high on your priority list?
If I could shake Chip Poose's hand,
Oh, that'll be easy.
if
Yeah.
I could see Stacy David shake his hand, you know,
I don't know
um,
where Stacey Davis hangs up, but Chip Foose has always got a line that's about 30 minutes long, all day
yeah,
long.
Sam Mamolo from used to be Shade Tree Garage way back when. That's one of my earliest memories from a car standpoint of like one of the first people that I started to watch on Nashville Network when I was like 12 and got bit by the bug. Just people like that. Do I want to go and sit through a bunch of classes if it fits into the schedule? But the priority for me is to reach out to some people that really had an effect on who I am now,
Yeah, that's cool.
and what gave me that passion, and just be able to connect with them on a personal level and say, hey, never thought I'd be here, never thought I'd meet you, never thought I'd be having the platform that I have. Thank you. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all. Like I said, if I could meet Ian from Extreme 4x4, Big Tiger S, that'd be super. Because think about that little connection that him and I have. Like we've driven the same roads. We've walked into the same parts stores at different points in our lives. Like it's to see somebody from my area reach the heights he has.
Yeah, that's
Unbelievable.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's probably going to be, I mean, we're getting down to not the last time, but I mean, the relevance of who they are is being
Mm-hmm.
lost. Like Stacey David, right? That's a big one, and it's kind of an unknown name to
Yeah.
most of the younger guys, right? And so their relevance is kind of phasing out, and we're going to lose the opportunity to be able to go meet them. To be honest, like, I mean, I'm not saying this is the last year you're probably going to see them in a show like this, but it's like
Yeah.
it's getting there, right? Like these guys, like if you grew up with them, like you need to get there and you need to meet these guys, shake their hands because they really are being phased out. And guys like, and I'm not saying anything bad, but like Dave Kindig,
I don't even know that name.
Is it? Did I say that right? See, like that's the relevance of where I'm at. Like these new guys that are coming out built with and doing builds. I'm just not in that scene anymore
Yeah.
because I'm focused on building a shop, right?
Mhm.
And so the custom world is kind of like it's kind of like getting past me. And these new upcoming builders that are phenomenal, I just don't know them, right? I
Yeah.
walk right by them. I'm like, there's a huge line around. I'm like, where are these guys waiting in line for? And then I see the guy. I'm like, who's that, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I have no idea who that is. I mean, Chip Foose is always going to be relevant, right? Like, just like
Yeah.
and if Boyd Connington, the same thing, he would have had a huge line too, right? Aaron Kaufman, he was there last year. I got a chance to
Mhm.
meet him, but the
He'd be a
line
cool
was short.
too.
And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, it's Aaron Kaufman, man. Like, no one wants to meet this guy. And
Arguably the brains behind the, a lot of the what got them where they are. Not the
yeah,
brains, I should say, but it's certainly like you look at his cars and his style and then what he tried to do. I relate to him a lot. You know what I mean? Like that took it took a lot of guts for what he did to leave, to say,
yeah.
okay, I want to do things my way, when he was arguably at the, whatever that enthusiast market would be, he was at the pinnacle of it. And to say,
Oh
no,
yeah, he absolutely could have like rode that train out and like definitely sold his soul, but, like,
mhm,
also been set up,
yeah,
because
yeah,
Richard really put some Richard is a businessman, like,
yeah.
I mean, how cool would it be to talk to that guy for an hour, right? Like
Oh,
and get inside of his brain and, like, figure out the shit, like, because
oof.
he comes off a little kooky, goofy, but he's doing it on it's all for a
Oh, yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's like he's good at it. He's really
yeah,
freaking good at it, and
yeah.
then he's smart with what he does, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah, it's and to be able to, like, work for him, I can definitely feel, like, the pain there that, like, like, I could see why that was probably pretty hard, but
Yeah.
also, like, that's also a sweet ride if you can jump on it.
I'd love to. I'd love to know though the breakdown, like how much better these guys pay. You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of going back to Dave's idea. I have some inside knowledge on what it paid and what it was like. And then you think about these guys that have these huge followings and maybe a TV show or whatever like that, and you look at them, you're like, they're only getting like a little bit more than what they would have made at the dealership in that same city. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they're on
Like,
TV, so they're happy.
I
I
don't
mean,
want to
fucking
be on.
that's a cute rule, right?
I don't want to be on TV. Like, I got enough time, hard enough time, just concentrate on what I'm doing. Right? If there was all of a sudden a camera going around me all the time, watching me like lose my crap when a bolt breaks off, like I like it'd be that road rage incident again. Like, it would just be too much. But
Yes.
who do you want to run into?
Man.
Because you're kind of more into the I don't want to say, you're more in the scene than I am, right? Like, being just where you're from, a lot of it is like, how many people leave California to go to SEMA?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's everybody there, right?
Yeah,
I mean, doing the rounds, and you got to look to see who's going to be there because that's the one thing too is setting expectations, and then like the person you want to see is not even there, right? That's a good question. I haven't really put that together.
no,
I mean, and a lot of it's like I like the running into the people that are kind of behind the scenes,
okay,
right? And the guys that are like and like really getting like how did you manage that situation or how have you gotten to where you are?
yeah,
Those stories are like fantastic, right? And a lot of the time it's just walking up to a booth and just like starting a conversation with,
hmm,
some of the vendors that I use, right? Like um advanced adapters.
okay,
I
yeah,
don't know if
yeah,
you're familiar with them.
yeah, yeah,
So they're here, right? They're like 10 minutes away from us. That's
right,
like their home base is like right. So it's cool to run into them, right? And be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Like, and it's like you said, watching that story. Like you're from Paso, from our hometown. Look at you here at SEMA, and like everybody knows advanced adapters, but
yeah,
not just that, but different vendors that I
yeah,
use for different stuff. And it's like talking to those guys is like it's so cool to like use their product and then meet like the CEO or the engineer or like the dude like behind the scenes that's like making the shit happen, right? And
yeah,
it's like, man, I use their stuff all the time, and it's like you get a little, I don't know, I think that's the closest thing I could call to being starstruck. Like
mhm,
when I use their product over and over and over, like SSBC or vintage air and stuff like
yeah,
that, like just the normal stuff I see every day. Then I can run into the people like, oh, you're the lead engineer, like that's freaking cool, man. And then I can ask them questions. Hey, why do you do this or that, or the other thing, or how did you manufacture that, right? And like that stuff's cool. And I feel like that's my starstruck. I'm like,
Yeah, like it'd be like meeting Gail Banks, right? Like as an example for some
I was
people.
gonna say Gail Banks is the next one. Yeah, yeah. I missed
I
him last year. Yeah.
I would love to meet Jesse James as well. I don't know if he's going to be there, if he's completely out of the. I know I don't think he's building nearly as many cars as he was, right? When he went to Texas, he kind of was like more getting into the doing the cars thing than doing the bikes. Now he'd always done both, not just the Monster Garage stuff, but like he'd done custom cars too. But that's another guy that was like has such a profound influence on me. And I've never been on a motorcycle in my life. I probably never will buy one, but just his way of when he started out starting the way he did.
Yeah.
You know, he's famous for like he refused to build a bike for Sylvester Stallone because he wouldn't do a yellow bike. You know, stuff like that. Like it's just I respect guys that were like, no, man, it doesn't matter what the money is. Like I can't go against what my core value is
Mhm.
to just put a product out there. Like, and I think that's you saw how Orange County Choppers, how they kind of people in the industry just beat them down, called them cookie cutters and everything else. I don't cookie cutter or not, there's still some talent there. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? There's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
talent. And it's just that hate that I have that there's so much going on. That's the shit that just drives me nuts in the industry, period. Is like there's so much hate if we could just get away from that. You know, like
That's why you can't make everyone happy, and that was like two good distinctions, right? We have like Jesse James, one off only. Then
yeah,
you have Orange County Choppers or
total.
West
Yeah.
Coast Choppers, whatever the hell. And it's like they were trying to build a business, right? Like
Mhm.
they were trying to replicate something to be more profitable, right?
Yeah.
Where Jesse James had a hard time financially because he
Yeah.
was building one off custom bikes. Then you
Yeah.
got someone like Richard Rawlings that has found that secret sauce to keep the
Mhm.
custom shit going, but
Yeah.
then still build a brand and be able to replicate it and make freaking money, right?
Yeah.
And it's like what happened like the garage rehab got a lot of bad rap. Like that was just like and that's probably why the show went away because of everybody on social media. But then
Mhm.
he's got his bar and grills, right? That
Yeah.
like everybody's like, what the hell's this guy doing? He doesn't know how to do bar and grill. Got a hot sauce, got an energy drink. Like he's building a freaking brand, man. Like,
They go to Sturgis. You know what I mean? Like they're
yeah,
not building a ton of bikes. They build one or two.
yeah,
But he's going to Sturgis and camping out for a week, selling how many hundreds of $1,000s in t-shirts and hot sauce and everything else. Like
right.
people that just want to hate on the people that have a hustle. I don't hate on your hustle, man. It might not be for me, but
Absolutely, yeah.
good on you.
I mean,
Like,
it feel like it cheapens it, and it's like, "Oh, what is he doing?" And it's like, you're just not gonna make everybody happy. Like, you got the
yeah.
guys watching the one-off builders like, "Man, I wish he had more. I wish he had shirts. I wish he had this and that and the other thing." Then you got the other side that's like, "Man, they don't build enough custom stuff anymore. They're supposed to be custom, and all they're doing is selling shirts and selling T-shirts." And it's like, "Oh my god!" Like, there's always somebody, and I've realized like once you find a hater, you know you've made it.
That's
So I'm still looking for mine.
I, I'll give you some of mine. I got them. I mean, and it's like I love it. I absolutely love it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just, and it's small scale, but I mean, it's just go ahead and hate, man. It's all right. Like we don't have to get along. This is all just a small window of what we really are, and I can talk about it. When we sat down at ASTA, and I wish you'd have been there. I sat down with some of the top guys that are on the TikTok side of stuff for automotive content. And like, you want to talk about some guys that have like a huge fan base, and then you want to talk about some guys that also have some haters. Like to sit in that room with them was like, it felt really empowering because it's like, okay, I'm not at that level yet of engagement. But I know that guy sitting right across from me, there's like 1,000 people a week that call him an a-hole. And it's good. He's so good with it. You know what I mean? It's just part of his persona at this point. Like he's hated. And it was refreshing to be around people that are that confident in what they're putting out all the time.
Yeah, it's
You
like you're not mad at me, you're mad at your dad.
know? Oh, I was watching the Adam Sandler movie last night. Yeah. Um,
That's all it is.
yeah, I would, and yeah, just so many things. Like I'm just going to be, I told Lucas I'll probably drop 10 pounds because I'll try to walk the whole darn thing.
Yeah, you can walk it and keep in mind like the SEMA the convention center where SEMA's at, there's the Tesla loop. So
Hmm.
remember the Tesla loop because it puts you up into each different area, right?
Okay.
You don't have to walk 4 miles. You can just takes you underground, which is a cool experience all on its own, right?
Right.
Goes on the underground tunnels and pops. I don't know if you heard about that at all, but that's a pretty cool. It's just cool to do it, but it's also extremely helpful when you need to go from
Yeah.
like one side to another at the convention center.
So once I'm in the convention center, if I need to jump on that loop, it doesn't cost me anything.
Nothing free.
Just like an Uber. Well,
Yeah.
not even like an Uber because I'm not paying it. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's free rides back and forth wherever you need to go, and I think the stark difference between the two is, especially at SEMA, there isn't those people like it's all industry and we all have professional respect. So you don't have these, idiots walking around trying to hate on anybody.
Yeah.
It's all good. And that's where you find all your in quotes famous people, right? And all the people that you need to find. Apex is a lot more refined. Like it's
Okay.
very business oriented and very like if you need a new tool, you might find it at SEMA. They got some cool shit there, but Apex, like in Joe's garage, like you
Okay.
walk around there and it's like all the most newest and relevant stuff going on. Like that's where we came across our management programs because they're all lined up in a row so you can demo like all the way down the line all the different management programs.
Hmm.
Joe's garage, they have active lifts going on, so they have vehicles
Yeah.
on lifts, on alignment lifts, they're balancing tires. You can get in the transmission side where the ATRA is there. They can show you how their whole subscription works and you can see all the different stuff with transmissions. The guy's got a transmission live demo where he's taking it apart, putting it back together.
Yeah.
Just cool shit. Like, and they got AVI, not AVI. Is it ATI with the Prius that's cut in half?
Okay. All
And you
right.
can actually see like all the wires and like just cool, like to see something like that. And they'll show you this is our training program. Same with Garage Gurus. I don't know if you have
Hmm.
that up there.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
got their van there, so you can check out their van, their whole training program, just like all that stuff. It's just a little more refined for like the technician, shop manager, shop owner kind of side.
Yeah.
So it's not as big. You don't have cars everywhere. It's not so many people. I find it to be a little more intimate.
Hmm.
I enjoy Apex a lot more. It's just kind of like, and you go walk around SEMA and then you go to Apex and you realize you're just kind of like, like,
I think
like,
I think
oh, I feel better.
16-year-old me is really interested in the SEMA, and then like the Jaded mechanic, technician 25 years is more interested now in the Apex side. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I might get you to walk me around some of that transmission stuff and just kind of see it, because like that's something I'd like to see a little bit more of and understand it a little bit better. With some of the guys that I see online, what they're doing with the Transgo kits and stuff like that. Like they're really going in, like I said, at this engineering almost level and fixing these things to make them last longer, like you were talking about, right?
yeah.
Billet parts and stuff like that. Like if I could get a better understanding of that, um, versus because did I see transmissions get rebuilt at the dealership? Yep. They didn't get rebuilt the way that you see these guys do it. And I'm not running them down, but I mean the way they
Yeah.
do it is at another level. Like you've done it. You've been that
It's
guy.
it's interesting, and I want to take off on a tangent a little bit, but the the more I learn, because I learned transmissions before like heavy engine diag stuff,
Right.
right? Like I was building transmissions. I mean, there was VVT around, but like cam actuators and that kind of stuff. I think it evolved more, and we got more problems out of them after I was already doing transmissions. And the correlation between the two is like almost identical. Like
Yeah.
like the VVT solenoids, the cam actuators, it's all just a hydraulic circuit that's actuating
Sure.
something, right? And it's
Yeah.
a solenoid is a solenoid, and it's interesting to me these guys that are really really sharp when it comes to like cam actuator codes, timing codes, and then it comes to a transmission problem, and they're like, you think it's the solenoid?" And I'm like, "Bro, like how this shit works, man. Like it's just a hydraulic circuit that's actuated by spool valves and a shift solenoid. Like it's not magic. Like it's very very simple, right? Like, and the more I say that, the more they're like, "Yeah, it's simple for you, right?" I'm like, no, it's not. It's like it's still hard, but it's like it's the same. And the more I learn about the engine
Yeah.
side of it, I'm like, it just starts clicking together like puzzle pieces in my brain. I'm like, this stuff's like not as complicated as like everyone kind of thinks it is.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
being around it and like seeing it in an open display like that in like a calm atmosphere where you're kind of like you said, kind of on vacation, it's like that helps. Like it helps to kind of like, oh, get away from the stress, see the inside, like, you know what, that really reminds me of something else. And then like the puzzle pieces start clicking in your own brain, you know? So,
Yeah, that's huge for technicians that are trying to get to that next level in their career, right? Like
oh,
it
yeah.
is, you got to get those puzzle pieces to go together. Like eh, I could, was there one thing I could tell you, one car that kind of just clicked for me and then it's changed the path? No,
No.
not at
Yeah.
all. It just seemed
Right.
like it was always little tiny steps, 1 minute at a time of understanding a better process, and then you just keep tweaking the process and tweaking the process until it's like, you know, you look at some of the guys that are so sharp, and I'm like, I'll never be there. But I mean, it's like, it's so cool that they started out too. We all kind of started at the same place, you know.
Right.
And then it's just whether you develop your process better or you go in a different route with it. Like I'm amazed when I look at the guys that the programmers and the hackers, and I don't want to call them hackers, but the programmers and the guys that are like able to virginize a module now and everything like that's
Right.
just, to me, is so groundbreaking. Because I mean, what's the big problem a lot that we're facing right now is shortage of parts, right? Or parts are being phased out before the car really should be phased out, for whatever reason you want to say that's happening. And these
Right.
guys are like just going, I'm not going to accept that that's going to happen, and I'm going to figure out a way to get around it. And I'm just like, I'd be so scared to open up a module and just start like, you know, what does this do? What does that do? What if I take this out? What if I unsolder this? They're just like, bah, it's already broke, man. Like, you know,
You know where a
it's
lot,
so
you know
cool.
where a lot I think that comes from too is just understanding how it works and not looking for a solution, right? And we talked about that before we started recording, right? Like these guys that are looking to fix that problem that's in that box instead of
Yeah.
trying to look at the bigger picture, right? Instead of like reaching out on these forums and say, what is a, you know, what's a PO171 and what do I do to fix it? Like, really? Let me give you the freaking 100-page book of what can cause a
Yeah.
PO171, right? Like, why don't you understand what sensors are detecting that and what the enabling criteria is, and look up the manufacturer freaking, you know, data, and like what
Yeah.
what did these engineers design this process to find? Like, then you understand the process. So same with the computers, like you understand microprocessors, you understand what the farads are, you understand what the resistors are, and then you can start tracking the circuits down. You're like, oh, that resistor there, that, so you can like, you understand what it's all there for, so you're not trying to fix that individual problem. You're kind of
Yeah.
looking at the bigger picture, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like, yeah, of course, this is all I need to do is desolder this and resolder that, or looking for that one relay, like the, you probably dealt with this, the GMs, the ABS modules that had the
Yeah.
relay code that would always come up, and you could crack it open and see that
Mhm.
the solder is cracked. So you
Yeah.
just resolder and it fixes it. And
Yeah.
it's like someone might have just showed you that one day and that was just the fix. But there was somebody somewhere that was like, okay, where's the relay located? Oh, the relay's in the box. So they open the box. Oh, look, the pin that the command switch for that relay, the solder is cracked. So I bet when the signal goes out, it's not grounding that. So if I solder that,
Sure.
it'll, and so he understood it and fixed it, and it was like,
Yeah.
holy shit. But like looking at from like the 30,000 foot view, you're like, oh man, you opened up a computer and resoldered something. You're
Yeah.
like, you're a freaking genius. And I was like, well, no, not. And it's like, you know, like that humble comes out like, well, not really. I just
Yeah.
was like, I knew what I was looking for, you know? So I don't know. A lot of that shit is like doing these seminars or going to these training events. That's where you start learning all these little tidbits, and like it all starts coming together, right? And this is like the biggest one. Like the SEMA AAPEX is like, my ASTA is fantastic for networking, and there's some great
Mhm.
training there.
Mhm.
Um, there's other ones around the country that are great too. Like, but like this one has like freaking everything, man. Like,
Yeah.
and you, like I said, you can talk to the people that have designed these, the engineers that have designed these products, and
Right.
then you can really like, why do you set it up like this? Like, what's the thinking behind it? And then you can really absorb that, and you're like, I get it.
Mhm.
I understand, right? On like on the next level. It's so cool, man.
I want to meet. I want to meet Sherwood from Royalty Auto Service. Obviously, if I can get a chance to bump into
Oh,
him for a
Sherwood.
second,
Yeah, that's a good one.
you know, I'd
Yeah.
like to. He's going to be there. So uh,
We
just
got to track
those.
these guys down, man. We just got to
Yeah,
go track them down, huh?
we run in different, and you know, you and I run in different things. Like you're into the coaching thing now and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just still. I don't want to say just a technician, but I mean, it's like I can sit and watch, you know, Sherwood talk about how he's checking powers and grounds on an ECM and an older Cherokee for like an hour.
Oh, you
That's
and me both. I mean, I sit, I'll sit there and watch, you know, Paul Danner. I mean,
Yeah.
I just there's so many videos. There's no way I don't think you can ever watch all of them. But like my sick day when I get like actually under the weather, I'd sitting on the couch and watching like Scanner Danner, like
Yeah.
or ATI
Mm.
Bernie Thompson.
There'd be
Like
another one.
I can watch Bernie Thompson for hours, and I've sent videos to my buddies, and they're like, "Who is this guy, man? How do you watch this?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"He's a genius. How do you not?" Yeah.
But like it's funny. I was on the CTI course last week, and the instructor there. It always doesn't matter who. Somebody always shares a Bernie clip. That's where they learned it and used it to build their class that they're putting on. And they're like, oh, he talks so fast, so he's hard to follow. Like he goes so fast. And I'm like, for him, he's not going fast. Like he's having to really slow down because his brain's just so like gone. He knows exact why is he that good? He's 40 some years of doing it.
And
From the
designing and engineering and like
40 years of taking a problem car after problem car after problem car after problem car after problem car for 40 years, hooking a scope up to it and just going back to the basics and what do I actually have here and what do I have to do. That's it. I yeah.
You know what I think it is too is it's like if you try to wrap your head around to him trying to learn every vehicle and figure out the problems on every single vehicle, that's where your brain starts exploding. You're like, how does he know so much? But that's not what it is. I think it's like because he truly understands how each sensor works and all manufacturers use the same. It's Hall effect sensors,
Mhm.
right? It's solenoids. It's like everyone uses this. It's all 12 volts. Like it's all the same. And I say that all the time with my guys. I'm like, electrical is so easy because it's always the same. Like the rules don't change. So like when you start understanding it, like there's no magic. Like it's very, very, very consistent. Like electrical problems and electrical work is like it's always the same. Like
Yeah.
the rules cannot change,
That's right.
and yeah, he truly understands like how all that shit works. And then he goes in the service information and says, oh, this manufacturer is using this sensor to watch this. And so if that's not right, then that's where your problem. And he just understands it. And then he takes the time to research that service information, which no one does. Like
Mhm.
like Brian Pollock always says, like, that's all you got to do. Just read the freaking service information.
Yeah.
That's it. That's your answer.
And he goes one farther, and when he can't find the answer in the service information because they won't publish it, he reaches out to somebody and finds the answer.
Yeah.
He won't accept that that's not published there. He wants to know why, right? He's
Yeah.
what like any typical noob. I went on to Reddit and kind of looked into first time people going to SEMA. What should
Oh,
I
perfect.
avoid? And somebody keeps talking about the hot dogs. Don't eat the hot dogs at SEMA that they'll give away for free because they'll make you sick. Um,
I don't think I would
obviously,
even think about that.
obviously Vegas is known for being Vegas restaurants, but I mean, where are some of the places that like you are looking forward to
During the
eating
day?
there, day or night
Yeah, you don't eat during the day.
at all?
No. It's
No.
just go, go, go. I don't think I've sat down to eat at any of the days. The morning is like get what you can while you can, because if you guys are an Airbnb, that's going to be a rough morning. Every morning is going to be a little rough to try to
For
get down there
traffic.
in time. Because we're at Treasure Island, which is like right across the street, and it's still hard to get into Apex by 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Um, I mean, it's Vegas, right? So it's a late
Yeah.
night. It's a lot of talking, a lot of walking. You wake up and you're like, oh my god, what just happened yesterday? I feel like I got hit by a train. And then you're like, just go, just get up and go, get up and go. Your feet are aching, your hips, your leg, everything, right? So,
Yeah.
but I mean, man, Vegas. I love the food there. I love food.
Yeah.
There's a bagel shop like right between Apex and SEMA, like right around the corner from the Win.
All
It's a
right.
big old bagel up on top of the roof, Bagel Mania or something like that. Oh man, if you like a good bagel, they make a mean freaking bagel. All the fixings in it. I love
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah. There's a taco place too, like walking back, like around the corner. It's world famous. Like it's a good
Right.
little taco spot. Yeah. For like cheap kind of stuff. But man, the steakhouses is the way to go. Like at the
Yeah.
Paris, you get up top there, you get the filet mignon with the foie gras. I mean, you just, $90 for a plate of food for yourself. There's nothing like, you know what I mean? Like we're doing it. This is Vegas, baby. Put on a suit and go out. Like I'm dropping
Suit.
$300 on dinner tonight. You know what I mean?
I gotta buy a suit then to come to
You
Vegas.
definitely got to get a suit, man. Well, I mean, Lucas. I'm surprised you don't have a suit by now.
He has
You know what we
not
need? We
mentioned.
need we need David in a suit.
Yeah. I don't.
Like the three of you walking down Fremont Street all suited up would just make my freaking day, man.
I'll probably end up like of the three of us, and it's funny because Lucas is more redneck from by location, but I mean it'll be like if I don't have Crocs on when I'm walking by the fourth day, it's going to be a miracle because I mean my feet will just be trash, and if I had a camouflage hoodie on, I probably wouldn't think I was that far out of my element, but yet I will be.
Oh, it's
Um,
all right.
my buddy was asking me, he's like, "Well, where do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Well, I heard they have an In-N-Out burger that does really well right in Vegas," and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, because up here we don't have In-N-Out Burger, right? So I'm like,
Oh.
every time I go somewhere, it's like, well, the first time I ever had Chick-fil-A was only like 4 years ago because we only have two Chick-fil-A's in all of Canada, right? And they're in like that number might be higher now, but we never did. So everybody's like, go to Chick-fil-A. I'm like, what the heck is Chick-fil-A? Like it was, it was different.
My wife is like Leanne is just all about Chick-fil-A. She loves it.
Yeah,
It's like it's like a early childhood memory for her. So it's like,
yeah, but I'm thinking like everybody's like talking about In-N-Out Burger, and I'm like, I don't know what to. So my nights in Vegas hopefully is just going to be like walking around seeing things that I haven't seen.
yeah. Well, what do you want to look forward to eat? Like Hugo Cellars? Holy moly, that's a good steakhouse, right? And there's a couple good Asian places, like some good crispy duck. Like,
I've never had crispy duck in my life.
oh man,
So the
we
only
might have
restaurant that I know off the top of my head is like Hell's Kitchen, Ramsay's restaurant, right? Which some people say is not what it really you
yeah.
would think it would be.
I'd rather go to Hugo Cellars than Gordon. I actually did both. We did Hugo, and then we went to Gordon Ramsay and had the same beef Wellington. And it's
Okay.
like hands down, Hugo Cellars beef Wellington was like by and large, like yeah, nope. Gordon
There's one.
Ramsay, it was good, but nope.
And there was one I saw it popped up on my TikTok feed. There was some old, like it was an old mafia place where you could go get Italian food. That looked like I wouldn't
Oh
mind
yeah, I
seeing
want
that.
to. You know what I want to do? I haven't done that one, and
No,
every year I want to do it.
we should do that.
I heard Circus Circus has a good steakhouse too, but I don't know
Well,
if I'm gonna eat it. I don't know if I need to stay at Circus Circus.
there's, and then there's the other one. I can't remember. I sent Lucas the link to it, and it's like a steakhouse that's been there. It's off the strip. I think it's right in like a little strip mall, and it's
That's
been
right.
like,
The
hey,
golden
yes,
something. Yeah, yeah.
and like you see their prime rib and you see like their lobster and it's expensive as heck, but it's like same old mafia vibe to it, right? Like it's been there forever, and that's is where probably like all those cats would come and get a steak or whatever. But that's I've never been, so I mean now I still think of like when I think of Vegas, I think of like the movie Casino. That's what I think about.
Hmm.
It's like and now that's not Vegas, right? It's
No,
not even close, but
no. A little
you know,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta spend the money, get the food, like you're looking at these menus like $80 for a plate, like fucking whatever, like
Yeah.
it's hard to go from being on a budget and trying to be frugal every day and like watch it to like going to Vegas, like just fucking just get the meal that you want, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's tough because you're trying to budget everything and you're like, oh my God, I can't spend $100 on a plate of food. It's like just fucking do it, man. It's experience. And it ends up being worth it pretty much every time.
Yeah.
Like every
That's
time we've gone and I've gone out and I'm like, it's just been like now it's to the point like $90 for a plate of food, no problem. Like we're in Vegas, like it's just a different expectation, right? Like different experience. Like, yep, no problem. I got no problem with it.
we ate good when we were at ASTA. We ate really good. We went to the one steakhouse. We went 2 nights. I went first night. I arrived with Mike and Eric and Lola and Tamika, and like we had a great time. And then I was with went to Brazilian Steakhouse the last night with Lucas and David. That was amazing. So that was
Yeah,
really
they would do that.
Brazilian is incredible.
Yeah, because there was one in Utah I was trying to get everybody to go to. Oh no, we don't want to do that. All right, whatever.
Yeah, you
So
come out
that makes sense.
with the meat sweats. It's literally like there's a salad bar there, but David's like, "Don't go to the salad bar. Like, just save room." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a little bit of salad." He's like, "Nope, just you're gonna regret that." And sure enough, when they start coming out, and it's like, "This is lamb," and this is like I couldn't. I was just like, "Holy crap, man!" Like it was ridiculous. It's 2 hours of eating nothing but protein. Yeah, makes you sleepy.
That's awesome.
So,
There's just food over there.
Reddit said too, don't walk around there wearing a t-shirt. Like try to look a little more professional. So I should have to go buy some clothes, I guess, before I
I think
go.
I heard that one. I usually do like shorts and flip flops and a t-shirt. That's usually me
Yeah,
with my
yeah,
backwards hat. So maybe I can step it up a little bit. I like to go a little Vegas fancy, at night and put something nice on before I go out to dinner. Like I always like to make sure I dress up when I go out to dinner. Like
okay,
I don't know, maybe I was raised, I don't know what it is, but I like to look nice. You get better service, you get a little, I don't know,
really,
everything just steps it up a little bit. But I think just being comfortable walking around is the main thing, right? Like, and
yeah,
I always just walk around in sandals. They're like, how do you
okay,
walk like miles in sandals? Like, I don't know, just my feet. I'm the most comfortable putting sandals on. Maybe I'll do
hmm,
sneakers this year and see if it's any different, but just you got to be comfortable. And hopefully
yeah,
the weather's good because that's what when you got to wear a sweater, because you're out, but then you get in there and it's always hot because there's so many people. Then you got to like
mhm,
carry your sweater around. But
yeah,
SEMA's nice because there's a huge like tables full of bags that like
okay,
are giveaway usually by what's the name of the company? There's usually some off-road company, but they'll have
hmm,
shoulder bags, right? So you want to grab yourself a shoulder bag because everyone's got handouts or booklets, and by
okay,
the time you know it, you're like trying to hold it in your armpit or whatever. So you got to make sure you got a bag, but you don't need to bring your own because they do have bags that they give away there.
okay,
Yeah,
right
we
on,
use them for grocery bags now all year because we just
yeah.
like everyone. I'm like, grab another one, grab two of them, grab two of them, like because in
What
California you got to pay for bags. So I'm like,
sometimes at nights there's concerts and stuff going on too, right? Out in the parking lot and like
That's
the
the
drag
that's the
races
that's
and
the
stuff.
SEMA Fest, and to be honest, I have not
No,
participated in the SEMA Fest, but if you're into that kind of stuff and you're young and you're motivated and you want to do that, that's probably going to be the best time you've ever had in your life. But
right,
they used to do, well, they still do, where they run all the cars out at the end of the
hmm,
Friday, and they open Friday up to the general public, and it
right,
turns into kind of a mess. I mean, it's quite the scene, but it is
yeah,
a good time. But for me, by the end of the week, I'm burnt out, and so I can't really like. I just can't.
yeah,
I just physically cannot. I don't have that in me anymore. But now they're doing the SEMA Fest where they have the bands, they have the
hmm,
big they have all kinds of shit going on. It's just a madhouse. So
yeah.
I'm not sticking around for that, but I'm all, I'm also there to like get what I need out of it, and like I'm not really like in the big party scene anymore.
They say that you come home from this with a lot of the insight on like tooling, what your shop needs or what you didn't know your shop needs until
Oh
you were
my
there,
god, dude, that's like you don't know unless you know, right?
right?
Or you don't know until you know, and that's like it's the same with like going to ASTA and you get to meet these people and talk to these people, and like all of a sudden you're like, this has been here the whole time. Like all you people have been like communicating and conversing,
Mhm,
and like, how did I not know about this, right? And that's the
yeah,
same thing. You get there and you're like, some of the tools and the vendors, like you would think as big as they are, it would be on a billboard, right? Or you'd be able to see
right,
it on your phone, or see it on Facebook, or see it on Instagram, or see it on whatever. And you
yeah,
don't because they just don't have the marketing budget. So you get there and you're like, you guys have been here the whole like this tool or this whatever, right? The
yeah,
software program, like this has been here the whole time. I didn't even know about it. And they have a huge following. They got a bunch of people. And it's like you just don't know until you know.
yeah.
Right. And you know what's really sad that like kind of twists me up a little bit is you don't know until you ask. And I bring this up, and this will go off on another tangent again, but like the funds in your bank account, right? They won't tell you about high interest savings, right? So you get all
Mhm,
this money, or you get a little bit of money saved up in a checking account, and you move it over to a savings because you don't want it in your checking account because you want something stupid to happen. Like the rate of inflation, you're losing money with it sitting in a savings account. Unless your money's earning like 2% a year,
yeah,
you're losing money because you're not you need to make more than 2% just to beat the rate of inflation, right? So you go to the bank and I'm like, hey, is there anything I can do with this money? Oh, we lost you.
no, you're right back.
There you
I'm
are.
here.
That was weird.
You glitched for a second there, and
Had a
then
little bit
came
of
back.
glitch. I think we're good though.
Yeah. So you were talking about you go to the bank, and then the bank doesn't really. What
Yeah,
happens?
where'd I lose you?
You lost me right about there. You were
Oh,
talking about
okay.
what is, and you asked the bank, what do you want them? What can I do, right, to try and get a better, more
Oh,
interest
okay.
on
So you got
the money?
you got everything. You didn't lose
Yeah,
anything. That's good.
yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, you're asking. So do I need to put it in a simple IRA, Roth IRA, 401k? Like, what's my options here? And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, actually, we have a money market account. So it's like, what's a money market account? Like, oh, we'll take your money and we'll put it in a money market account. It'll earn between 3 and 5%. What? Like, yeah, we'll just put it. Well, does it lock it up like a CD? And they're like,
Mm.
oh no, it's not a CD because a CD's got to be locked in for 6 months and then you can get a higher rate, but that locks all your money up, right? So you got to be careful with that. You don't. So the MMA, the money market account, they'll just put it in there. You're freely, you can take money out, put money in. Why don't we just do that? Like, why haven't we just been doing that? Like, well,
Why
you
is
didn't ask. Well, you didn't
yeah.
freaking tell me either. Like, I don't
No,
know. That's just
you
like,
don't want to, right? It's a balancing game. Like, why do we still have an account out there that only pays us 0.5% interest rate, and they call it a savings account if there's something that makes us 3%?
yeah,
Like, I'm still putting my money in there for savings.
right,
Why do I need the one still existing at 0.5 if you can do it at 3? Because they
right.
don't want everybody doing it at 3, right? There's no money in it then at that point.
And there's a lot of vendors and there's a lot of marketing companies and software programs and all this other stuff, and like the and sadly the people that represents that company for you, like your personal representative, just doesn't tell you this stuff until you go to these events and you talk to like the CEO or the president or
Okay.
like someone that's a little higher and you're like, hey, I've been having a problem with this program. What can and they're like, oh well, we have this available that will help that. What? I've been like asking for the last 6 months to the oh, who's your representative? So and so. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll have a conversation with them. And it's like all of a sudden all it's resolved. It's all resolved. You have your solution to your problem, everything's fixed.
Yeah.
Like, how come nobody told me about this? Like, I was getting ready to jump ship. Like, I'm like, and they're like, oh no, we have like this is what you need, right? And same with the tools, You're like, hey, I've been
Mhm.
trying to solve this, and then you see that like that's the freaking tool I've needed. Like,
Yeah.
where has that been, right? And you just don't know it until you go to these events and see them. Like,
Like
there's
I
a
live.
there's a Swedish company that makes this ball joint press, and I
Okay.
don't know if you've seen it, but it will blow your freaking mind.
I
Like, and
think
they're from.
is that the one that like um comes together like that to push out?
No, it's a big press, and it's a hydraulic press, and it comes with adapters. So
Okay.
instead of doing the big C clamp, it clamps on, and it's a little mini hydraulic press. Then you click it, you hook air to it, and you just hit the button, ta, 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 ta,
Okay.
ta, and it just powers, boom, pops your ball joints right out. Like, I mean, it's like an $800 tool, and I don't have that big of a problem with ball joints, but I'm
Right.
like, for someone like you, where you're at, like that's like game changing. And I have
Mhm.
not seen that anywhere. Like, you look up ball joint presses and it's just flooded with Snap-on or Matco
Yeah.
or like Harbor Freight. Like, they got the share of the budget for Google or
Yeah.
Yahoo or Bing or whoever. And so you'll never see those kinds of tools where you're like, dude, if you're doing 2 or 3 sets of ball joints a day, that will change your freaking life. And you wouldn't know
Mhm.
about it unless you went there and seen it?
Yeah. I what what I really want to do is walk up to somebody at Harbor Freight and say, "You guys need to work on being able to get your stuff in Canada." You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
Like it's and then not to run down other tool companies. That's not what I'm trying to say. Is that I'm looking for free shit from Harbor Freight. But I mean, I can remember trying to buy a cart from Harbor Freight like a year ago. You couldn't buy it unless you went over there, right? And then it's like for us, if we go over, if you're only over there 24 hours, you're limited on what you can bring back before it froze up again.
Like, we missed that
You
last
froze
part.
again.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I would be like, how do I get this cart? You got to come over and like buy it and then pay tax and duty to bring it back. And then if you're like, if you haven't been over there long enough to spend $500, you're paying a lot of more money to bring it back versus if you just stay 4 days. So now it's the joke is every time I go to one of these events and I travel, when I come back, I grab like $500 worth of stuff from Harbor Freight and bring it back because it's no duty on it, right? No tax.
Mm.
And it's so if I could just be able to like pay to have it shipped here, but Harbor Freight won't ship to Canada. They use a third party called U-Ship or something now, which is still better, but you're still paying quite a bit of money to get them to process it. It just frustrates me.
That is
So,
frustrating. I don't
because
know.
like,
It's not bad. They're not. I mean, that's another one, right? That's like, it's a lot of bad rap is Harbor Freight, and like,
yeah,
I only buy Snap-on. I only buy Matco. And it's like, just calm down, buddy. Like, all those videos of like people showing their. Remember that was going around for a little bit, that viral trend. Like, look at my toolbox, and it was like a freaking an apartment, right? And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I've had this box I've had for like 10 years. Like, I can fit everything in, and I just did. I got one of them U.S. General boxes from Harbor
Yeah.
Freight. I fit everything in it, and I'm like, I got a 68 C10. I've been like, I basically built up
Mhm.
all the way to the frame, cut, shorten everything, like ground up, and nothing more than tools that are in that little box,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need, and I see some of these other shop owners and they got this big giant toolbox, and I hire new guys that come in and like, and where's your box? I'm like, that right there, like that's it. I'm like, that's all you need, man.
Yeah.
Like I can appreciate it. I got nothing bad to say about someone that rolls in with 40, $50,000 worth of tools. Like right
Yeah.
on. If that's what you need, like that's cool. I don't need it. I just don't. My dad always like, you can figure it out without the special tool. He always like there's a special tool with it. Someone engineered and built it, so you can figure it out without it too, right? And
Mhm.
sure, like maybe the ninth or 10th time in a row, I'm like, okay, maybe I should buy that tool because
Right.
I've been dicking with this thing I've made for, so it's like about time. But I can figure it out, and like that's the fun in it. Like I don't know, it's frustrating, but it's also a lot of fun to be able to like manipulate and like find my own way. And that's what really blows my mind when you go to these shows and you see someone that's engineered something that you've been building yourself that
Yep.
you didn't even know someone else already thought of. And then you can have this conversation with them and like you both click and you're like on the same page. You're like, dude, and the little spot right there, I like to bend that and like, oh yeah, that's why I have this little thing flip out. I'm like, oh dude, you're freaking genius, man. And you're like, and you just have that instant connection, it's like the
Yeah.
coolest thing in the world.
That's what blows my mind when you see the guys that are doing like the 3D printing of like um well, I'm trying to think of the guy, what his actual handle is now, but he was a former guest of mine, and now like I'll say it wrong. So he's 3D printing all these different toolbox widgets to like hold pry bars and wrench organizations and sockets and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
3D printing it all the time.
Yeah.
I would bet by now that he's making as much money with that as he is working as a tech. And he
Probably. Yeah.
was a tech that I had on like over a year ago that was like trying to find his way out. And so for this little side hustle thing that he's got off a 3D printer, good for him, man. It's pretty cool. I would have really liked to have been able to buy one of the Harbor Freight metric wrench sets when I was there coming back from ASDA. And of course, like when I stopped at the local store in Syracuse, all gone. So,
Uh,
but I mean, when you see how that whole trend blew up over those wrenches, the tooling thing for me is that's what I'm still excited to see is
yeah.
not just Harbor Freight, but to see all the other tool companies that are going to be there that don't get, just like you said, a lot of the push because like if there's something really cool, something really amazing, I want to see the Power Pro booth for sure.
Oh,
But
that's
I
a cool
mean,
one. Yeah.
yeah. And then just what do they got set up and then go from there because if there's something really neat, then I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to get this to Canada,
The
and
the
then go
best
from there.
the best one is the new tool showcase.
Okay.
So if you're going, you got to check out the new tool showcase. And we've had guys from our Cal Poly is a local college here,
Hmm.
and they actually built something armadillo liners, and they were
Okay.
showcased in that new tool showcase. And they're young kids; they're like in their early 20s, and
Yeah.
they don't have the budget to like market this stuff nationally. Like it's like Shark Tank kind of, right? Like there's all these
Right.
companies that like they don't have the budget to be promoted nationally to for
Yeah.
any of us, you and I, to ever know about them. And the new cool tool showcase is SEMA actually puts them in, a drawing, and then they get like 15 or 20 different people that win that prize, and they all get in this little special booth, and you can walk around and see all the new tools that have just been developed in the last year. And that's
Which
what's
is
really
sweet.
cool because there was the talking about the tool bit, there was toolbox widgets. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard of that one, the little
Yeah.
orange ones. Like he was there. He was there what 3 years ago when he first put it out, and now he's blown up too. And it was like I remember seeing that, and I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea. And I didn't buy any of them. Kind of wish I would have because it was like half off of what he's selling them now for. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I that's pretty cool, right? But like all that kind of stuff, and then a lot of them that have showed up there are gone now, right? They didn't make
Mhm.
it, but it's still cool to see the conception and like know that
Yeah.
like, man, I remember that guy. Like, you ever heard of the fender lizard?
It sounds familiar. I'm trying to
It's
think.
it's it's a brake stick. It's a pneumatic brake stick, so you can put it
Okay.
on your steering wheel and it'll bleed the brakes for you. Hook it up to air, you hook it up to a 12 volt, have a little wireless button, and you can
Okay.
hit it and it'll push the brake pedal for you. He's local. He's a guy that was a tech here at one city over, and he wanted to get out of wrenching, and so he developed and he called it the fender lizard because those are the guys that like to lean on the fender when they're watching you work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never heard of that before, but I guess they call them fender lizards, like a lot lizard.
Yeah. Well,
You know lot lizards, right?
Oh, there's lots of them around here for sure. Yeah,
So
yeah. Stay away
anyway,
from
so
them.
he designed this thing and then he showcased it there. Now he's got a booth there every year, and it's like I know him, and it's like it's just cool, man. It's just so cool
Yeah.
to see these guys, and that's the platform that they jump on to like become these bigger companies. It's just super cool, and watch it to the conception, the evolution. Not only that, but be able to like step in and support it yourself. You're like, that's a cool idea. That's an awesome product. Here's my money. I want to support what you're doing. Like, I think that's
Mhm.
the most important thing too.
That's what I like, and I'm not a huge Power Pro. Like, I don't grab it every day, but to see that those two guys are still going to be there, they're still working on new product. Like, they've taken what essentially the very first tool and built it into this massive corporation with all these great ideas and a think tank and marketing, and like, good on them, man, to be able to meet them in person. And like, I mean, Lucas and David had them on their podcast, right? Like, it's just, that's going to be pretty cool just to
Yeah.
see what do you guys got coming up next, right? And then they'll start whispering about things that they're working on, and it's like,
That's the
or
question that you only get
yeah,
there, right?
yeah,
Or even know that's just like what you said there. I didn't know that about those guys, right? Like, so to know their and like to walk up to them and like ask them, and they're like, "Oh, you're actually the like president," and like, "Yeah." Oh, and then you can like, "Hey, what's your story?" And then
yeah.
they tell you the
Well,
story, and you're like, mind blown. You're like, "Oh, I thought it was like this big, huge, industrial corporation." It's like, no, it's just two humble guys that like started from nothing, right? And you're like, you respect their product a little bit more, and you understand like, and then if you have a problem, you can actually reach out to them and be like, "Hey, so this tool's doing this," and they can help you with it. It's like you never. How would you ever else make that connection? You
yeah.
know?
And I'm sure you've probably seen it too, where it's like, when you go and look at something online, there might be a little blurb, a little paragraph at this top that's like a synopsis of where they started from and where they are, blah blah blah. Nobody ever reads that, right? When you're
No.
actually looking to like purchase
Yeah.
something,
Right.
right? But that'd be so much cooler than it's like, wait a minute, you guys have been around since the '80s. You know what I mean? And you started. It's like the, what is it, Steve Jobs or whatever, that started in the back of his, this tiny little shed,
Right.
right? And then built whatever it is, Apple or Windows, I can't remember.
I think it
Whatever.
was I think it was Apple. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Close enough.
just that kind of success story, right? In our industry, that's
Right.
cool as hell, man. Cool
It
as
is.
hell.
Well,
But to be able,
it helps you realize that if you're looking at getting out of the industry, right? Like
yeah,
altogether, like just hold on, just wait. Like there's so many other things you can do,
yeah,
cuz it'll never leave you. Like you'll get out of the industry, but you'll always be working on something. You'll always like it'll always be a part of you forever. You'll never be able to get out of it. And you just made this rash decision to completely leave and go do HVAC or something really stupid,
uh,
you know?
yeah.
Not to say
Well,
anything bad about HVAC, but
no, but
a lot of guys are leaving the industry and they don't realize all these different paths. And like you said, you can become extremely successful if you listen to these guys' stories and then come up
yeah,
with your own product and just follow what they did. Right? They're setting a path for everybody.
yeah. And I used to say all the time, and I still believe it, that like the only reason that some of us stay in this industry and don't go to something else that's a skilled trade is because the excitement of, the way your C10 is going to sound and perform when you drive it, right?
Right?
You may hate every other part of that job of putting that car together, right? Like, everything fought you. But that excitement,
Oh my god, yeah.
you can go in there and do somebody's plumbing. There's no excitement at the end other than to just cash the check. You don't have anything after that.
You get to blow up that toilet.
Well, but
I don't know if that's exciting, but
I don't know if you're allowed
especially if it's a gold one, just
to the
annihilate it. Just walk out like shoulders
puck,
high, like I destroyed that thing today, feeling
and
really good
it's
about yours.
and it stood up and held up. That's
You know,
that's the cool part for me, is being able to see, the passion, because I can lose it within 6 months, right? I can
mhm.
and then, so to be able, this is what I say it all the time, the podcast and the events is what's keeping me in this industry, because like what you and I were talking about before we got on the air here, you get faced with something like that and you're like, man, it's the same old cycle again, right? It's the same old cycle. Whereas
It
like now,
absolutely is. Yep.
I'm going to go there and meet my people that have been like, were the reason that got me into this, motivated me to do it, showed me that it's like, hey, you can do this. I'm sure that's going to be worth a couple years worth of, motivation and grit and determination to stick with it, is to be
Yeah.
able to connect with those
And
people one
it's
on
funny you brought that up because I've been having just with this podcast, right? Like
one.
it definitely wears on you. It takes, I mean, it's motivational, but I mean, we were talking about what, a week ago about it, and I'm
Yeah.
just it's very defeatist to like come out and have this information, this really powerful stuff, and not really have a lot of people take to it or like learn from it or reach out and like ask more questions about it. It's really one sided, right? Like we're just sitting here talking with each other. We have no idea who's listening. We know there's people listening, but we don't know and we don't see the power behind it. And so you lose your drive and your motivation because you're not seeing something be built, right? Like we like to do something and build something and see the results from it, right? And it's the same thing you brought up with the C10. And I was having the, I mean, it's been 2 years. I've been every single weekend, every spare minute of my life. Like I've been piecing this thing together. And I mean, when I say I took it to the frame, I literally stripped to the frame, cut the frame in
Yeah.
half, shortened it, shortened the bed, like rebuilt the engine, rebuilt the transmission, rebuilt the differential, all disc brakes, like every single nut and bolt I've like, and I enjoy that process, even though it's extremely frustrating when you put the engine in and it's too far forward, and now this custom radiator you built is now running into the fan. Now you have to recut your motor mounts and drop everything back, like all those things. But like when it's done, you're like, I freaking did it, I did it, right? And
Yeah.
just the other day, I went to fire it up for the first time, and it was not running right. Like
Mm.
sounded like it had a knock, and I'm like, and it just kicks you right in the, and like I don't have time for this, right?
Yeah.
I have so many other things I need to do to this truck to get it done, and it just demotivates you. You're like, now it's not running right. Oh, and I still got to do the drive shaft, still got to do the exhaust. I'm like, I can't go backwards. Like, why is it always something, right? And so of course it's maybe something I did when I built it. I'm like, now I got to pull the engine back out, and it's all painted now. Like the whole thing's painted. I'm
Yeah.
like, no. So I just take a minute and breathe, and I bought a, and I'm gonna throw Painless under the, I don't know if you heard of Painless products before.
Oh, painless wiring
Throw them
for
under the
sure.
bus here
Mhm.
because I'm like, why am I misfiring? And
Yeah.
so I track it down. My injector's not firing. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Well, the pins that they put in the connector of the PCM weren't in the right spot. So I took the
Okay.
factory pin out and I convert, and I looked at the connector they gave me and the numbers, and there was two injectors. One was in a completely different connector, and then the other one was just like two spots over. I'm like, what the hell happened here, right? And then like, but
Frustrating,
like
man.
that whole process took me 10 minutes to figure it out. And like
Yeah.
now I'm like full steam ahead again. Like that's all it took. Like boom. Dude, I fired that thing up and it's all snappy. Sounds all, it's a 454 big block cam.
Holy
Like
jump.
yeah, and it's open headers right now. So I'm telling you, fuel injected. So I'm telling you, when that thing fucking hit, it's like, hell yeah, dude. Like I'm like, let's go, right? And I'm fired up. But like it's funny that little tiny snag just it, I mean, it's probably been 3 weeks that I'm like, I just don't have time for this, right? I'm just defeated, and I just pushed it away, and it affected
Sure.
everything else in my whole life, right? Even though
Yeah.
I wanted to say it didn't, it did. And I'm like, fuck, that's all it took, man. Like,
20 minutes. Yeah.
and then all it took was that 10 minutes to hear that thing fire up and rip. Dude, I'm good to go.
You're
And
good for
I think
another year.
it happens at the events too. Like you get
Yeah.
so defeated and you're constantly with the same people in the same environment over and over and over. And you get to these events and you talk to people like you and I,
Yeah.
and like we're motivated and we're going, and they're like, dude, that's why I'm doing this. And then like you said, 6 months of like go
Yeah.
energy, and it's huge. You
So I
know,
can tell you a story. When I was at ASTA, I did my roundtable, right? And that was kind of like, it didn't turn out great because the room is loud and the sound was, so it was hard to hear. Now it's recorded and they'll fix it. But I mean, like I got off the stage feeling really good about talking to the four people that I had up on my panel. I had Jimmy Lee, one of Jimmy Lee's jackets I borrowed, right? So it was like fat guy in a little coat, right? Like I couldn't move my arms because I would have ripped the back right out of it. But I came off of there and I'm feeling good. Like the conversation went good. It all flowed. I didn't need a cue card or nothing. And it's everybody's lunch is finished. And I'm like, I got to make a beeline down to the thing before they put all the food away, or I'm not going to get a chance to eat. And there's some fried chicken and all this. I'm like, good
banana
stuff.
pudding. Yeah.
Yeah. And a guy comes up to me and he goes, love the podcast. And I don't remember this. That's the thing. It's so hard now to remember everybody's name. And he's like, hi, I'm whatever. And I'm like, cool. He's like, I love the podcast. He's like, listen, I got to ask you one question. And he says, I know you want to go get lunch. And I'm like, okay, give it to me. And he's like, I'm 23 years old. He says, I've been doing this 2 years. I'm working in a shop. I'm here paying out of my own pocket to come to this thing. He says, the guy that I work for is only 29. It's a new startup shop. He's struggling. We're struggling. Like he keeps telling me it's going to, you know, get better, but financially, like I can't stay here much longer with the tool bills that I'm having to pay and all this kind of stuff. He says, do I get out of this industry and go to something else? And I said, I can't tell you what to do from a long-term standpoint. I said, all I can tell you is right now at your age, if for 1 second you don't think that like you see a growth in where you are at the business, move now. Because I said there's never been more opportunity for somebody like you than ever in the history of this industry. And I'm at go-karts that night or the night before. And go-karts was like, I just hung out with Cecil. I sat with Cecil and talked to them and some other people at the table and all that kind of stuff. I didn't go ripping around the carts. And I'm going again to the food line. Somebody comes up to me and he introduces himself. And of course, I don't remember the name. And he's like, 7 years ago in a Facebook group, he says, you tore me a new one because I asked an absolutely dumb question. And he said, like, you took a lot of flack for the way you answered me. And he said, he's like, literally, he says to me, he says, I want to thank you for being that heavy handed with me. Because he said, it put me on a path to where now I don't have to ask many questions. And he's there at this event, taking all this training and learning all this stuff. And it's like, so the podcast, like you do it, I do it. It doesn't, we're not going to get rich doing this. Right. And it's a big commitment. But for me, every time I have a detractor, every time I have somebody says, well, you never fixed anything in your fucking life. Like, you can't fix cars. That's why you don't put anything out there. I remember that it's like the way I have decided to conduct myself, the conversations I've decided to have for the better part of a decade now has changed people's lives because they've told me and proven to me that it's changed their life. So this is why I do this now, is to stay motivated. Right?
Yeah.
That's been the beauty of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is.
Like, that's pretty empowering. It's pretty empowering.
It is. I don't know how to put that into words as far as looking for more. I think like Facebook kind of does it to you, where the self-gratification, that's what I'm looking for. So we're always looking for a little more self-gratification for the work that's going into it. And it doesn't take much. It takes once and like you're good for 6 months to a year. Like, not asking for like, but it does. All the negativity sometimes does breed. It does. And then giving someone advice and then seeing them ask the same stupid freaking question like a week later, it's also demotivating. You're like, dude, you're wasting it. Like, why did I waste my freaking time and breath on you? Right. But you got to keep pushing, because you never know who's listening in the background, and you'll never have those conversations without getting out to some of these events and like seeing these people and like talking to them face to face. Cause sometimes that is way more powerful than hearing someone, on the podcast or hearing someone or reading someone texts you, like getting out there and like shaking their hand and like getting the real like face to face interaction. Sometimes that's what people need to hear and see too. So, and no one knows themselves.
No. Well,
you don't know do I need to read a book? Do I need to listen to a bunch of podcasts? Do I need to go meet these people and shake their hands? Like, I don't even know what the freak I need to make that click. And so you just got to get a little bit of everything before you're like, oh, this is really starting to like absorb with me. And I'm going to go down that, I'm going to keep doing that because that's working.
Yeah. Like Charles, the humble mechanic. Like, I met Charles the first year I went to ASTE, and I didn't have the podcast yet. I'm tagging along with Lucas, right? And I remember he's sitting next to Paul Danner. Paul brought him to the ASOG dinner. And like, he doesn't know who I am, and I know who he is, but I don't really, like, I'm not a Volkswagen guy, so I don't really follow his channel, all that kind of stuff. To 3 years later, when I'm there now I'm walking around the expo at ASTA, and he stops me and he says, dude, he says, I love your podcast. Like, the last guy I would have ever thought would be listening would be him.
That's cool. Yeah.
Right. And then he says, we talked for like, it felt like 10 minutes. And he says, I'm going to be at SEMA. I'm bringing a car that I built. Like, this is the first year that I've been, like, he's gone to SEMA before, but this is the first year like SEMA's going to have him bring a car. And he's like, when we're there, he says, we need to sit down and have a conversation.
That's cool.
And I'm all of a sudden, it's just like, me? Like, like, that's still where my head's at. Like, I don't realize, and you don't either. I don't realize the amount of people that are out there who's actually listening. Like, the numbers say one thing, but it's the people sometimes that are just that number like when you realize the scope of the people that are connecting with you. And I think that's going to be the cool thing is like when I walk around now, and Asta is small compared to SEMA, but if people stop me at SEMA and go, oh my God, I have heard that episode.
Yeah, that
I'm
one
gonna
that
be
one
like,
guy's worth 1,000 on the numbers, huh?
yeah,
I think that's the big thing, right? Like you can
yeah,
see thousands of whatever downloads, but it's like sometimes it takes that one person and it's worth like 1,000 in like downloads or
yeah,
whatever metric you're looking at. You're like, dude, I
sure.
do like I. It's like you get that. I made it. I did it. Like like I love
Yeah,
that guy and he's listening to me. Like I'm into it, right? And it's
yeah,
like talk about being motivated, you know?
yeah. If Charles, the humble mechanic, can listen to anything I say and take reference and relevance to it, oh my God, like I've done something. I've done
Yeah,
something in this industry, right? Like he can relate to me now and I can relate to him on a different level than just he's a mechanic and I'm a mechanic, which is not a small thing. But the fact that I can say something that is so poignant in his mind, man,
and without even the platform, like if you run into these guys and have like an actual conversation with them and then you reach out to them on Instagram or Facebook, they will recognize you and remember you. And that's the cool thing too, like Paul Danner, right? Like
yeah,
that guy was like huge for me, right? And to
uh-huh,
meet him at ASTA and then have him on the podcast, it was like
yeah,
mind blowing for me,
yeah,
right? And now we can like talk on Facebook and he's like, I'm like, dude, we going snowboarding in
yeah,
this winter or what? And he's like, oh yeah, that sounds. I'm like, dude, like how would I have ever gotten that without going across the country, right? And it's the same thing at like when you go to SEMA and you run into these guys, like not saying that me and Constance Nunes are in good, terms
yeah,
or whatever, but
yeah.
it's like I think she might remember me. I think I've,
According
I've
and
said hi a couple. She goes to Madonna Inn a lot, which is like 30 minutes south of us.
okay,
It's like this really fancy hotel. It's like horses, and so she'll bring her Mustang down and like take pictures out there. I'm like, oh,
okay.
you're back in the area. I hope enjoy Madonna Inn. She's like, oh, thanks, and it's like, oh, cool. She totally remembers me.
Yeah, I
Probably not.
remember that. I
Probably
remember
not, but it's still a connection.
she had that TV show on Netflix that I remember seeing. I can't remember what it's called now, and that's where I first saw her.
Yeah, I
And
was not counting cars. What the other one is?
Counting
Yeah,
Cars, that's the other guy. Like I keep
that's the
thinking
one
about.
in Vegas, and he
Yeah,
has a big party at a shop during SEMA too. So if
well,
you want
that's
to
what
go there, we can get you over there and meet
I
that
would
guy
love
because
to meet Danny for
yeah,
sure.
because I know Kyle's like really in cahoots with him. So I know there's like some parties that he does over there. Well, and his shop's open. It's like a museum, so you can go
Yeah,
there and like look at all the cars and stuff too. It's pretty cool.
yeah. I would love to meet that guy. Like and that's the key. I keep thinking like, am I going to have time when I'm there to be able to go and do this and see that and all that kind of stuff, right?
Probably
Or
not. No, probably not. No. The
oh
days go by, they're so long, but they go by so quick. It's almost depressing because
yeah,
you wake up and you're like, "Let's go," right? And then like you realize like every conversation is like 20 minutes,
yeah,
right? And so you don't have a lot of those.
yeah.
You get
Wow.
like, it's kind of like I remember the third or fourth day I started realizing that like every conversation that I'm having is like it's taking 20 minutes.
Hmm.
And so then you start calculating how many of these conversations can I have before it's 4 o'clock and everybody starts leaving. And you're
Right.
like, damn, there's not enough time.
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody comes home, not home, but they go back to their room at the end of the day and they're just
Done.
wiped, right?
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
sure that they don't want to go and like, okay, well, let's go have dinner together and talk some more. Like I'm sure they want to be like, okay, I've been Constance all day. Like I want to go hide somewhere and get probably room service instead of like going to the restaurant where she's gonna be like another 100 people waving at her and everything. And she can just like recharge for the next day, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, the next day of smiling and waving and being nice and so I mean, it depends who you are too. Some people can handle that shit. Like
Yeah,
if you're like David Roman, you can be up at like 5 in the morning, you're just go, 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 and then you go to dinner after and you're just the happiest guy till like midnight and you're just like and you like don't even sleep because you can't wait to get back up to be that really go getting
that's
kind of guy, that's
you've
hugging
got
everybody and
you've got Lucas and David confused again because
oh
that's the whole thing. Like when you're around, you know what it's like to be around Lucas, right? You
yeah.
can't. It's infectious. You're just like, how do I have this much energy? Well, and I'm not drinking the amount of energy drinks that he is. So like, what's it doing? But it just rubs off on you, and then you just you kind of come back to David again, and that kind of like brings you back down to the little more even keel. not quite so. Not I'm not trying to say he's a curmudgeon. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you know
Not
what I
at
mean?
all,
It's
no.
like
Yeah.
he could meet the president and he wouldn't get that excited. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or maybe not the president is a good reference, but you know what I mean? Like he could meet.
He'd probably be disappointed, I think.
I think, yeah, I think he'd be disappointed in everybody he meets. So he's just
He's just disappointed. I'm not frustrated. I'm just disappointed right now. And I have a
David.
few things
David,
I'd
you're
like to
gonna go
tell you
meet
about.
David. You're gonna go meet Jesus, and he'd be like, "Oh, I thought he'd be taller."
I'm a little, I'm a little disappointed. I'm gonna be honest right now.
He didn't look at all like the pictures. Yeah.
I like how he says that about Lucas. Is like, did he just go make another friend?
Oh
And like,
yeah.
just downright frustrated about it. Like, just genuinely upset that like he's made another friend. It's like, it's okay. I'm sure you're still number one.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Oh.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you never know and that's the other thing too. You won't know who you run into like out at dinner or out and about because a lot of guys they don't go and stay walking around SEMA and Apex. They'll be out, in the city too. So it's tough, man. It's tough to like. I love it and hate it. Like I want to be there all day and I want to like absorb everything, but it gets
Yeah.
overwhelming. I'm like, I gotta get out of here, right?
Right.
And it's like, oh, I need to go back. Like as soon as you leave, you want to be back, and as soon as you're there,
Well,
you want to leave.
that's what I have to keep in mind, right? Is I'll probably keep a notebook of what I don't like. I'll go there with like people that I want to meet, and then if I don't, I have to think about like, okay, well next year, right? And then kind of because I think that's gonna how it's gonna go for me. Is it like because there's some I'd like to meet them, but if I have to stand in line for 45 minutes, like I have to think about like, is that worth it? You know?
Yeah, and 100% because of all the other things that you're missing. Because not necessarily because you don't want to waste your time waiting for that, but it's like, yeah. And I had the same thought. It was like, man, 30 minutes. There's
Mm-hmm.
like that's a big part of the day. Like, and
Yeah.
you really chunk it up like that. You're like, you have like 8 to 4, right? With no lunch. So like there's not a lot of time there to like make the connections you need to make and like get around to the people you need to get to. Is like really setting a plan and like staying to that plan is like I found in the last few years is extremely important if you really want to do it. And then the
Okay.
next important thing is take all that stuff you want to do and freaking cut it in half. Unless you want to give yourself a damn complex, because otherwise you're just like, hey, oh, good to meet you. All right, gotta go. Bye. And it's like no intimate conversation at all. You're just like shaking hands just for the fact of shaking hands, right?
Yeah.
And that's not fun. Like, I mean, like you said, like it's just gonna have to be next year then. Like, if you
Yeah.
can't make that happen, just put it for next year because there's no reason to like rush around just for the fact of like taking a picture with somebody. And I made
Yeah.
a mistake the first year or the second year doing that. It's like, oh, I want to get to all these people and then take a picture with them. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, now after I'm like standing in line with the person I want to meet and shake their hand and take a picture with. Meanwhile, I'm thinking where the next one is.
Yeah.
Be present in the moment because I literally look back on it now and I don't even remember it. I have the
Yeah.
picture, but I don't remember it because I'm like already somewhere else, Yeah.
Yeah. Rush up, get a picture, and don't even get to have maybe the conversation you really want to have.
Yeah.
And
Or
then
even
it's
physically remember it because you weren't even present for the moment, like,
yeah. My girls, Lisa and Joelle from Promotive, have got a party planned. So hopefully, you guys will show up to that. And I don't know. It's going to be quite a blast, I guess. But those girls know by now that like I'm normally I go to bed early. They go hard. Like they can stay up late. They can just like, they're that way, right? They're like Lucas's. They're just like, they feed off of it. And me, I'm like, if I got to be at SEMA by 8 in the morning, I'll probably be getting up at 4 because that's how I'm a slow starter in the morning. I got to stretch and, things don't work right. And then by like, if I'm up at 4 and the party's at 8 o'clock, I'm like, okay. So, so it'd be cool if some of the people that like, I don't get a chance to hobnob with make it to the party because then that's going to be pretty cool.
that's
Because
gonna
then
be a good time. And
yeah,
there's tons of parties, but the planner is important. And I think we'll do that group message again that we did last year. So we need to definitely
okay.
get, the first night there's that big meetup, and I think that's critical to really get everyone together so we can get like some sort of message to keep everybody.
Okay.
Because that the hardest part about it is finding people. And
Right.
not just like looking for the people that we've been talking about for the last hour, but like our people, like us, and like
Yeah.
keeping our group together. It's really,
Hmm.
really difficult as you walk through these places and you don't know who's who, you don't know what's what. And you start at, hey, who are you? Where are you from? And not that you're stuck in a conversation, but you're kind of stuck in a conversation for a few minutes to like, all right, well, you're not quite in my industry where I'm looking for, but you're a nice person. Hey, thanks. And
Right.
so to have like a group of that we can kind of stay together and like know where to navigate,
Okay.
that's what really makes the experience a lot kind of special. Cause then we're like, we can meet 8:30 in the morning, we can all get together and like, hey, does anybody know what's going on? And everybody will know something different, and that
Right.
helps too. Like, hey, I'm looking for so and so. Oh, I saw them yesterday and they said they're going to be here. Because even though the planner's great on the app and it'll tell you where everyone is, things change, and
Yeah,
I've
for sure.
and I've waited at booths and I'm like, they said they're supposed to be here at 10. And I'm like, oh no, they changed that last night. They're actually over at the Magnaflow booth. I'm like, what the? I'm sitting here for 15 minutes waiting. Like, damn it.
Yeah.
So, and then
And
there's no
where's
one to ask.
yeah, and where's the Magnaflow booth? Oh, way over in the other
Oh
like
my God. Yeah.
miles away. Yeah. So cool. Right
Yeah,
on.
it's difficult to navigate, but I think coming together and keeping a group together would be really special to help keep that stuff keep everybody in the same page,
Yeah. Well,
and the parties too.
I'll lean on you guys a lot.
Yeah, I'm hoping Frank's there too.
Frank.
Frank from he's one of the salesmen at Shop Boss.
Oh,
That
okay.
guy's just an absolute riot.
Yeah.
I love
Okay.
that guy. When we were at
Good.
ASTA last year, Lalo and I did the whiskey tasting.
Okay. Yep.
It was late. It went really late, and we had we had to be out of there at like 4 in the morning the next day, and I don't think
Mhm.
we stopped tasting whiskey till like 1 in the morning. And
Oh yeah.
whoever that guy that was like leading that whiskey tasting was like, I could watch him for hours. That guy was a freaking riot.
Yeah. The last night I was there, and I popped in for a few minutes and just watched it because Lucas was popped in for a few minutes, and then there was like all these. I mean, Benji Burris was there, and they're all, and it was like Taste of Scotland, right? And I'm like, and it was at that time, it was probably like 10 o'clock at night. You know what I mean? And people are sitting in 20 people in a room sitting there drinking whiskey. And I'm like, I'm not signed up for this. And I am not going to be, because I had to get up the next morning, same thing at 4 o'clock. I had to go through TSA. 5 a.m. is what I was supposed to go through TSA because my flight was going to leave at 6:30. So it's like, and God bless it, but I'm sitting next to Becky Witt on the shuttle van going over right in the morning. And it's like, thank God there was some people that, you can still talk in the shuttle. Cause otherwise, like, I was so tired, I'd have fell asleep in that short little run over to the airport. Cause I'm like, and then once I get on the plane, it's such short flights. It was like 1 hour, can't sleep, an hour layover, can't sleep, finally get home. So I'm driving back from Syracuse later that day. And it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just like doing the heavy eyes, like
Oh, wiped out.
wiped out, which I shouldn't be. 4 o'clock, I should be just wired. But I mean, even if I get up at 4 a.m., but it just hit me all of a sudden when I'm in the car driving back. That's when it can all catch up on me. And I'm like, the last 10 minutes from home, I'm like, do I pull over and take a nap or like, what do I do? Like, it's just, it
Yeah,
was,
add a little whiskey hangover to that mess, and it's like next
oh,
level. Yeah, it was brutal. I
no.
probably wouldn't do that again, but I remember sitting next to Frank and that guy. He knew his whiskeys.
Yeah.
Like he was on point with his scotches and his whiskeys, and we
Oh,
were
yeah.
like having the conversation back and forth. And then the guy serving it was like, he's like, oh, well, if you guys like try this, hey, try this, and
Yeah.
it was like beside the whole flight of whiskeys we were already doing. So we were
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, I get back to the hotel room, I'm like, uh-oh, I fucked up. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, go right now. I'm like, I made a mistake because I'm like wide awake. I'm not even gonna be able to sleep. And I know when I wake up at 4 in the morning, I don't think this is gonna be gone.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we're on the shuttle bus and we're just staring at each other doing the wobblies. Oh, this was terrible. I gotta be on a plane for 6 hours now.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
why did I do this to myself?
So
But
are
it
you
was worth
bringing
it.
anybody else from the shop?
No, I was gonna have one of my techs go, but he kind of not last minute, but a couple months back, he bailed out on me. I had it
Okay.
all set up for him, and I wanted him to bring his wife and his kids and all that. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping one of these years I can get someone to commit to it. He's been with me for 2 years, so he was the one that was kind of, I guess you call, eligible. I don't have
Yeah.
anybody that's been around longer than that. So
Right. Yeah.
um, and it's an expensive endeavor. So
Hmm.
I
For
don't want to
sure.
hire someone. Not to say they're not going to stick around, but
Right.
like six
No.
months in and take them to SEMA is like that's a little tight.
Yeah. Definitely.
But
Well, any closing thoughts?
I think that was it. We got the shuttle. We got
Yeah.
the Tesla loop. Really important.
Wear comfortable shoes.
wear comfortable shoes. Get the app.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
It's
I
gonna be a
gotta
good time,
find.
man.
Apparently, I gotta find some nice clothes now. So
You do. You got to find a suit.
gotta go get
Well,
fitted for a suit, I guess. Before
if
I
you're
get.
not going to SEMA and AAPEX, you need to be, and you can show up there and pay at the spot. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is something that it's in Vegas, right? It's a good time.
Mhm.
It's I mean, SEMA and AAPEX are two totally separate things go at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you're not going, you need to sign yourself up right now. Check it out.
Yeah, there's still lots of time left, people. So I mean, if you were on the fence about doing it, I know you can still. It's coming in my email that there's still a spots available. You know,
Absolutely.
and
There's always spots available.
yeah, make it
Always.
make it happen.
And if you're going and you don't know who to hook up with, then reach out to one of us and
Yeah,
let's get together for sure.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Anybody that's listening, I'm going to be easy to find. Jimmy's going to be easy to find. And then, if you want to sit down and have a conversation and talk, that I would love to. We can
Awesome.
we can make that happen. So, Jimmy, I keep saying we need to do this more often, and yet you're so busy and I'm so busy that it makes it hard to get it lined up. We should definitely for 2025 try to make this a little more frequent occasion. So
we can really start talking about why shop owners are better than technicians. Oh, shots fired, huh? we can talk about why shops always fail because the technicians are just prima donnas.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm stirring the pot right now. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, I know exactly, because you know exactly what I'm coming from. And I mean, we could talk about that. Why shop owners are better at running businesses, and most techs are better at fixing cars than shop owners.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll agree to disagree.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, Chad.
I love you. We'll talk to you later, man. Take care. Hey, if you could do me a favor real quick and comment on, and share this episode, I'd really appreciate it. And please, most importantly, set the podcast to automatically download every Tuesday morning. As always, I'd like to thank our amazing guests for their perspectives and expertise, and I hope that you'll please join us again next week on this journey of change. Thank you to my partners in the ASA group and to the Changing the Industry podcast. Remember what I always say, in this industry, you get what you pay for. Here's hoping everyone finds their missing 10 millimeter, and we'll see you all again next time.